Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. This is Cam with Stoic Soldier. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I know it's been a minute, my apologies, but with 2025 wrapping up, a lot of things have been going on, a lot of life changes on my end. I'm pretty sure on your guys' end too. So 2026, I plan on making up with that 10 times over, more than one video coming out every single week, just getting a few things organized for the time being. But anyway, without further ado, again, hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Hope you guys have had a great Christmas, happy holidays, and then a new year to come. Hope 2026 is a much better year for everybody else. I've had my few rough patches over this last year, but nothing we're not used to, nothing surely that I'm not used to. This ain't my first rodeo, so on to the next chapter, new page, and from there we start fresh. So anyway, getting into the video today. I know I was in our last video we talked about the idea of fear and what it means and how it drives people, how it dictates our lives. And as promised, I am going to make a part two to that video. But one thing I actually wanted to elaborate on a little bit more, not just on the topic of fear, actually going and delving a little bit deeper into all topics with the same kind of relevance. So whether that be fear, whether that be doubt, whether that be insecurity, whether that be grief, any kind of negative emotion that usually drives people downward or sends them into a downward spiral. Again, that could be a variety of things. And realistically, when it comes to having a stoic perspective, people just think to themselves, "Oh, well, don't care. Okay, well, don't be moved by it." You know, we talked about the gray rock method. We talked about just being immovable. We talked about just not having any kind of reaction to it. Well, it's not always that easy. There's a mindset that you have to develop in order to make that happen. You got to be able to build yourself and or reinvent yourself from the ground up, and that all starts in here. That all starts internally. As the Hermetics talk about, as above, so below, as within, so without. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. Who you are on the outside, what you produce, the results that you see in front of you, that is a result of who you are on the inside. It's a result and a reflection of what's going on inside you internally. So that's really what you have to fix. You have to reshape the way you think, the way you feel, your interpretations, shifting paradigms for the most part, and realizing that certain things that you viewed as important at one point just might not be. You know, at one point, for example, when you were in school, you thought to yourself that if you didn't have the best clothes or if you didn't have clothes like everybody else, that you were immediately considered an outcast. You were immediately considered a nobody. You were considered a loser. So if you compare that to now, you look around at everybody wearing different clothes, everybody wearing the same clothes, you come to realize it's just not relevant. You come to realize that it just does not matter to you, and that's because you've accumulated a new kind of knowledge. You've developed a new perspective with new experience over time that just makes those past opinions and those previous views of yourself and of other people just less and less significant. And that all comes with you updating that framework, updating those paradigms, updating those kind of roadblocks that you've had programmed in your head. Either you've done it to yourself or somebody else has done it, or it's just because of life. But over time, even though, again, we talked about in another previous video, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. It may or may not have been you who played a part in that, but now you have full capacity to change that. You are in the driver's seat now, so now you can start reframing that. So to talk a little bit more about how this mindset of just being immovable happened, I'll give you guys an example. One thing that worked for me, starting from the absolute basis, even though I didn't gravitate towards Stoicism or Taoism or any other philosophy right away specifically, I've accumulated knowledge from a variety of different perspectives, of different schools of thought, of different philosophies, different religions, different cultures. Each one has one to offer. Each one has a commonality, if anything, multiple commonalities. And then each one has their distinctions. But with those distinctions, you can still pick and choose which one works best for you. It doesn't always have to be either or. It doesn't have to be straight Pepsi or Coke kind of perspective. So at one point, believe it or not, I actually took a little bit of a nihilistic perspective. Now, for those who may or may not know what that is, to summarize in the most simplistic terms, it really just means that you view life and everything in it with total meaninglessness. It's basically viewing things with total and complete apathy. And I was in that point at one life where I was just so defeated. I was below rock bottom, and whatever happened, whoever came in and out of my life, it just didn't matter to me anymore. I could not care less. So, not to say that it has to be like that, but in a way, I came to realize that it was actually a blessing in disguise, because that allowed me to just wash away those previous toxic thoughts. It allowed me to cleanse myself mentally. It was almost like a spiritual reset in a way, spiritual and mental, because I'd grown up with so many different norms and things that were and were not acceptable either by friends or by family or by society. And over time, it kind of drove me insane. And surely I'm not the only one, because we're told that certain things are right and wrong. And by reaching that point of absolute zero, beyond ground zero, if you will, and being at that point where just nothing really mattered to me, it allowed me to focus strictly on myself without having any kind of labels, any connotations, without having to put any meaning to anything. Now, again, that does not mean that it has to stay like that, but this allows you to just have that perfect reset and not have to overwhelm yourself psychologically with this has to be like this, or this is linked to that, or if you do this, then it's going to make this person think this. It allows you to just be free. It allows your mind to just be that blank drawing board, that blank canvas that it was always meant to be, like the vastness of space, like the entirety of the universe as it would. Okay, because our galaxy is not even a microcosm of what it is. The universe itself is just infinite, infinite in energy. So by me being able to have that state of nothingness, no negative, no positive, no good, no bad, not thinking that if I don't make this happen by this age that I'm screwed, or that if I do this too early, it's going to end up messing me up in the long haul. By just stopping that completely, forgetting about the concept of time, what is and isn't acceptable, I allowed myself to feel free. I allowed myself to just be present in the moment and to just fall in love with whatever process was, I was undergoing at that time. I was able to just simply enjoy what was. Almost like what they talk about with athletes, with runners especially in particular, as opposed to just thinking about distance and time and how many steps you're taking with every single mile and how consistent your mile time may be. I know because I've done this myself. I'm a long distance runner. But by doing that constantly, as opposed to just, if you run with music the way I do, putting on those headphones, playing your tunes, or just focusing on your breathing, focusing on your rhythm, focusing on maintaining that breath work, you come to realize that what felt like 10 minutes ended up being an hour, just because you allowed yourself to enjoy that moment. Stop making things more difficult for yourself. Having that blank slate, especially when it comes to tedious activities, are going to make it a lot easier. They're actually going to make it a lot less tedious. Also thinking about work, especially if you're at a job that you hate, if you're constantly looking back and forth at the clock and you're realizing that what feels like every 20 minutes is really only every 30 seconds, and the clock hasn't even changed to 1 minute at that point, then you're really going to drive yourself insane, as opposed to just putting your head down, doing whatever work that you have to do, sorting those papers, shipping files, whatever field that you're in. By just getting lost in that process, you already realize that you're halfway through your shift. Because as Inky Johnson even says, falling in love with the process over the product is really the key. Because if you know that that's the way that the product is made, if you fall in love with the process, the product is just going to be a guarantee. So going back to that perspective of how that temporary state, again, temporary state of meaninglessness and not putting any labels or connotation behind anything that I did or what I thought or how I felt. It just allowed me to be free. And eventually I was able to just find my own way back peacefully, finding my way to myself, understanding things, putting things together in my life. And that apathy that I felt at the time eventually just turned into blissful detachment. It turned into indifference, but in a healthy way to where I could still care about things as anyone could, but it's not at a point where it overtakes life anymore. It overtakes me the way that it used to. So if you're at that point right now and you just feel like you've hit rock bottom, as I have, that's not necessarily always a bad thing, especially not short term, because more likely than not, you're going through that same phase. And not to say that you grow, I mean, you do grow out of it, but it allows you to evolve into a better version of yourself. Thinking of it as a system reset. This mind of yours, this is your computer, this is your software, this is your hard drive, whatever you want to call it. And every now and then, just like as you would work with a computer, just as you would work with a browser, just as you would, when it comes to a tab on your computer, sometimes you just got to refresh that page. And you hitting rock bottom and feeling that state of meaninglessness, that just might be the reset that you need. And more often than not, it's going to take you exactly to where you need to be without having to over persevere, without unnecessary force. The best thing about it is that it's going to come naturally and it's going to be at your own will. So that's my story. That's all the time we have for today. I will definitely elaborate a little bit more on that in the future. And as I said, this is probably going to be the last video of 2025. So with that said, hope you guys have a fantastic holiday. Hope you guys have a fantastic new year. Hope 2026 is great for you guys. I know it's going to be a great year for me. And I continue to spread that love and that knowledge and that energy to each and everyone out there who could in any way use it, who in any way could benefit from it. And I hope it's doing you guys good the way that it has with me over the years. And hopefully you guys can spread that to somebody else someday when they need it. So thank you guys again for joining me. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys soon. Happy New Year, and Stoic Soldier out.